We all think our dreams are just illusions of the mind. But what if they are maps, written in a language older than memory, because hidden between sleep and death lies a gateway, and tonight we step through it. It begins in silence, that heavy, velvet silence before the first dream descends. You lie there, staring into the darkness behind your eyelids, and feel something ancient stir. What is this strange theater we enter each night? Why does it feel, at times, like visiting a place we once knew and will someday return to? In nearly every culture, from the temples of ancient Egypt to the shadowy oracles of Greece, from the shamanic drums of Siberia to the sacred fires of the Maya, there was whispered a secret. Dreams and death are not separate realms. They are twin rivers, fed by the same hidden spring. And so we find ourselves here, poised on the edge of a question too large to name. When you dream, are you rehearsing your death when you die? Are you awakening from a dream? Let us walk carefully now, as if through a misted forest at dawn. For somewhere ahead, between the fading stars and the quiet earth, the hidden gateway waits. And perhaps, just perhaps, it has been waiting for you all along. There are places in the world and moments in the soul where the fabric between worlds wears translucent. You may have felt it. That strange hush just before waking, when the dream still clings like dew. That unearthly déjà vu that chills your bones yet fills you with wonder. That impossible encounter, a departed loved one smiling at you from behind your closed eyes. In those moments, you are standing where the veil grows thin. The ancients knew these places well. They carved them into their stories, their rituals, their stones. To the Egyptians, the dream state was called duat, a shadowed road walked by both the dead and the sleeping. To the Greeks, hypnos and thanatos. Sleep and death were brothers, reclining on the same dark shore. To the shamans of the high Andes, dreams were not illusions, but journeys to the Pachakai, the spirit world beyond time. These were not metaphors, they were instructions. When the veil thins, the two worlds waking and beyond can speak to each other. One becomes the mirror of the other, and in the mirror, something waits to be seen. Modern science tiptoes toward this mystery. Neuroscientists have discovered that the brain waves of REM sleep and the near-death experience are strikingly alike, bursts of gamma frequencies, cascades of light behind closed lids. Patients who were clinically dead yet returned often describe floating, walking through tunnels, meeting guide scenes eerily similar to those painted on the tomb walls of pharaohs thousands of years ago. Could it be that sleep and death are not opposites, but thresholds on the same continuum? The poet Rumi called it the night sea, crossing a voyage the soul must make again and again, until it remembers the way home. And here, where the veil grows thin, we can glimpse what awaits beyond. You may wonder why. Then, do we forget? Why do our dreams dissolve in the morning light, and the visions of the dying fade into silence? Perhaps because the mind, like a child, fears what it does not understand. And so it builds walls of forgetting even as the soul presses its hands to the glass. But if you are quiet enough, if you listen closely in the darkness, you may feel it. That delicate seam in reality, the breath of another world brushing your cheek, the hush of an unseen gate slowly opening. And once you've stood there, once you've felt that gossamer line between what is and what waits beyond, you are never quite the same again. Who among us dares to chart the waters no sunlight touches, to sail into the darkness behind sleep, and return with a map. There have always been such voyagers, the cartographers of the night sea, the dreamers who remembered, the mystics who drowned and came back with pearls, the shamans who danced through the fire between worlds and brought home a handful of stars. In the ancient world, their names were written in whispers. They called them dream walkers, psychopomps, guides of souls. People would come to them at twilight, lying on stone slabs inside temple sanctuaries, awaiting visions sent by gods. They would drink the bitter herbs, close their eyes, and slip beneath the surface while the cartographer sat beside them, listening to the soft murmur of their journey. At Abydos in Egypt, priests performed the ritual of the hidden passage, where initiates slept in crypt-like chambers, their dreams considered glimpses of the afterlife. At the Oracle of the Dead in Ephora, supplicants descended through labyrinthine tunnels into an underworld cavern, emerging with messages from departed spirits. In the forests of Siberia, shamans beat their drums in sync with the heart, crossing into dream time to guide lost souls through the icy rivers of death. Each one of them carried a map, not of ink and paper, but of symbols, archetypes, and secret paths. These maps appear even now, in our private dreams, though we seldom recognize them. A river that must be crossed, a bridge of light over a bottomless abyss, a door without a key, a figure cloaked in shadow, pointing the way. Carl Jung believed that such images are not random. They are part of the collective unconscious, a universal memory inscribed into the soul. He called it the journey of the psyche, the soul's rehearsal for the final crossing. What if, in our dreams, we are following the same paths walked by the dead? What if the cartographers left their signs not only on temple walls, but inside us, signs we keep tracing, night after night, in search of the way home? Modern medicine may dismiss these journeys as neurochemical storms, the byproduct of an overactive brain. But those who have stood at the edge of death and those who dream deeply often describe the same landscapes: a tunnel of stars, a glowing threshold, a presence that waits beyond, neither cruel nor kind, but vast. We are the inheritors of these maps, even if we have forgotten how to read them. Tonight, if you close your eyes and find yourself walking along a riverbank or standing before a silent gate, pause, ask yourself, am I only dreaming? Or have I entered a place I have always known? A place I will see again when my final breath is drawn. For the cartographers of the night sea left their maps folded in our hearts, waiting for the moment we are brave enough to unfold them. What is a symbol, if not a bridge? A wordless lantern held aloft in the dark, pointing toward something we can feel but not yet name. Across ages and continents, humanity has etched the same strange symbols into both their temples and their dreams, as if trying to leave breadcrumbs for the soul. We see them in the oldest tombs, painted in ochre and gold spirals, eyes, serpents devouring their tails, doors flanked by lions. We see them in our sleep, flashing before the mind's eye a river to cross, a staircase of light, a hand reaching from the mist. Why do these symbols follow us? Why do they appear to the dying and the dreaming alike, offering the same mute reassurance that we are not alone? The spiral, for instance, carved into stones at Newgrange and mirrored in the visions of near-death travelers, seems to speak of the soul's journey, winding inward and then outward again. The Ouroboros, the snake that eats its own tail, whispers of eternal return, of endings and beginnings locked in a single breath. The door so common in both dreams and sacred art is a promise and a warning once you cross. Nothing remains the same. To the ancient mind, these were not metaphors. They were keys. Keys to unlock the hidden gateway between this life and whatever waits beyond. In the Egyptian Book of the Dead, one must speak the right words and present the right symbols to pass through the doors of the afterlife unscathed. In the Tibetan Bardo Thodol, the dying are guided by visions of peaceful and wrathful deities, symbols of their own mind, and told not to fear. For these forms are both illusion and truth. In Mayan cosmology, the soul descends through 9 layers of the underworld, each marked by specific trials and guarded by symbols carved into the earth itself. And what of modern science? Even here, we find whispers of the same language. Researchers studying the dying brain have noted recurring imagery tunnels, light, presences, gates, and always the feeling of crossing into something larger than the self. The symbols are not random. They are the language of the unseen, spoken through both matter and mind. When you dream of walking through a door, you are rehearsing for the day your soul must walk through the final door. When you see the spiral, you are tracing the path you have walked countless times before the path home. It is said that on the threshold of death, one remembers everything. Not only this life, but the lives before. Not only the words we spoke, but the symbols we carried. So the next time you dream and find yourself standing before a vast river or a gate of impossible light, do not turn away. Reach out, for these are not just the echoes of a sleeping mind. They are messages from the other side of the veil, carved in both sleep and stone, waiting for you to understand. And perhaps they have always been waiting. We live most of our lives believing the body and soul are chained together, bound like shadow to footstep. But there are nights, and there will be a day when that chain loosens, and the soul remembers how to walk alone. In dreams, it happens quietly. One moment you're lying in bed, heavy and still. The next, you are floating above yourself, watching the slow rise and fall of your own chest. This phenomenon, sometimes called lucid dreaming, sometimes astral projection, has been described in nearly every spiritual tradition. The Egyptians called it the Ba, the winged essence that could leave the body during sleep and visit distant realms. The Persians spoke of the Ruh, a breath of spirit capable of traveling the worlds while the body lay inert. In medieval Europe, mystics recorded nights when they rose from their beds and walked through walls of stone and fire, guided by beings of light. And in countless indigenous cultures, shamans speak of the soul leaving to commune with ancestors, heal the sick, and glimpse what lies beyond death. Modern accounts of out-of-body experiences echo these ancient stories with uncanny precision. People report hovering above hospital beds during surgery, moving through walls, visiting loved ones miles away, even entering landscapes that defy all earthly description, shimmering fields, infinite tunnels, oceans of stars. What if these journeys are not mere hallucinations? What if they are rehearsals, invitations, glimpses of the state that follows the final breath? Science can measure the heart rate and brain waves during such episodes, but it cannot explain the startling consistency of the experiences. Nor can it explain why so many who return speak of the same feeling: freedom, weightlessness, a sense of homecoming. One woman, after being revived on an operating table, described it like this: "I was walking without feet, seeing without eyes, alive in a way I have never been alive. And yet we wake each morning and slip back into the cage of flesh and bone, forgetting what we have glimpsed. Perhaps the body is a garment we wear for a time, a robe woven of atoms, worn thin by the years. But the soul The soul remains clothed in light, waiting patiently for the moment it can step outside and walk unfettered into the great elsewhere. When you close your eyes tonight, you may find yourself rising not just in dream, but in essence. You may feel your hands pass through walls, your feet no longer tethered to the floor, your gaze seeing farther than the sky. Do not fear this, for it is not death you are tasting, but its quiet cousin. And each time you walk without the body, you learn a little more of how to walk into eternity. And when the final moment comes, you will know the way, because you have walked it before. We search for guides in the dark, priests, shamans, ancestors, angels hoping someone will lead us through the veil. But what if the gatekeeper we seek is already inside us, waiting to be remembered? The ancients believed that within each person lives a hidden guardian, a spark of divinity that knows the path beyond life and dream. The Egyptians called it the Ka, the double who stands beside you, watching silently until the moment you need it most. In the Hermetic texts, it was named the demon, the higher self who whispers the secrets of the soul into your sleeping ear. To the Greeks, it was the psyche, not merely a soul but a winged being, fragile yet immortal, capable of guiding itself through Hades and back. Even in modern psychology, fragments of this archetype remain. Carl Jung spoke of the inner guide, the self, the unbroken core of being that already knows the way through shadow and light. And yet, we forget. We forget because the world trains us to look outward, to fear the silence, to believe we are small and lost. We forget that the gate was never locked. We forget that the key was placed in our own hands before we were even born. Sometimes the gatekeeper reveals itself in dreams. A cloaked figure who offers you a lantern, an animal that stares at you with knowing eyes, a version of yourself, older and wiser, standing calmly on the threshold. Sometimes, in the moment of death, it steps forward at last and you recognize it not as other, but as the truest part of you. Science may dismiss this as a protective hallucination. But why then does it speak with such authority? Why then does it know the paths you could not possibly know? Why then does it feel like coming home? If you listen closely, you may feel its presence even now, that quiet center of your being that has always been watching, waiting for you to turn inward and see. Tonight, before you sleep, close your eyes and ask who stands behind the door. Whose voice is it that calls me in my dreams? And if you are very still, you may hear the answer rise from your own depths. It is I. I have been here all along, and when the time comes, I will show you the way. Perhaps the greatest secret is not that the gate is hidden, but that the gatekeeper is you. At the end of every dream, there is a moment subtle, sacred when you stand at the edge of waking, carrying fragments of another world in your hands. A river of light that quickly recedes, a name you almost remember, then lose. A door that swings shut just as you open your eyes. This is the luminous threshold, the same boundary we will cross once more when our final sleep arrives. And though the body fears it, the soul remembers it as home. For thousands of years, mystics and seekers have described this crossing in almost identical words. The Egyptian scrolls speak of a horizon of gold, where the sun never sets. The Tibetan Bardo Thodol describes a radiance brighter than 1,000 suns, yet gentle as moonlight. The Hopi call it Sipapu, a small opening through which souls emerge, blinking into another world. And those who have brushed the edges of death and returned tell of a light so vast, so alive, it cannot be compared to anything they've ever known. a tunnel that is not a tunnel, but a passage woven of stars, a sound that is not a sound, but a vibration that speaks directly to the heart, and beyond it all, not an end, but a return. We think of death as a departure, but what if it is the opposite? What if this life, this dense, heavy dream, is the exile, and that crossing the luminous threshold is the act of remembering who we truly are? Science peers at the threshold from a distance, measuring neural surges and oxygen loss. But it cannot explain why the dying so often smile as they go, or reach out their hands as if greeting someone unseen. It cannot explain why the light feels so familiar, as though we have already stood there countless times before. The final crossing is not to be feared. It is the culmination of every dream we've ever had. It is the spiral's center, the door's opening, the river's end and its source. And when you stand there, when your feet leave the earth for the last time, you may realize that all the gates you passed through in sleep were merely practice. That the river you crossed in dreams was but a reflection of the great river waiting now. That the symbols, the maps, the gatekeeper were all parts of you, preparing you to walk through the veil with grace. So when the luminous threshold shines before you, do not turn away. Step forward, as you have already done in countless nights of dreaming. Step forward and let the light embrace you. For you are not leaving, you are returning. Perhaps the veil was never closed. We simply forgot we were light.